Self-correction. It's really amazing, and naturally, I experience it as an eternal blessing to know the truth. Um, Naturally, it goes back to childhood when you know the difference between what's real and what's not real. Naturally, every individual that you become aware of, because that's the energy that they're experiencing, that you become aware of, that I become aware of, who you are, who I am, and who we all are together, right? But the universe does have a way of self correcting itself because the universe is what's real, which is what love is. Okay, so when you know that as a child, because you experience that, then it makes it sort of easy to know what's real, what isn't, and why I knew as a child this was an illusion. Because you're experiencing things that aren't what love is. Because you're experiencing within your own heart and soul, and the essence of your spirit, my spirit, what love is. So that's real energy. That's real living light. That's known as living energy. So living energy is going to correct itself when it's experiencing something that isn't. Right? So that's basic logic or log scales that you can measure on a distribution table or a scatter plot. And why those, when I grew up in the 1950s, where I was living, okay, I was experiencing what I would consider to be an illusion of X, which is technology. Because I acknowledge that I'm spirit. The spirit that is in the energy, which is in the light. So the light, which is spirit, which is living light, which is what love is informing you of the environment that you're in that isn't what love is. So that means that you know what you are in energy, in spirit. So I just saw a beautiful sort of wake up of things that remind me of that, of what it means to correct yourself about vibration. So it mentioned in this little blurb about negative vibration and positive vibration. So I'm a polarity integrator. So that's androgynous. So that's the balance between the two, which is the negative magnetic polarity, the positive magnetic polarity. Right? So when two souls come together, okay, which simply means that you make a choice, if you will, to serve forever. The soul that represents what you are chooses to mate, okay, which is like to say that the male and the female never want to be separated from each other, because if you're in a male avatar like I am, this one, then I never want to be separated from the flower, even though I'm not in a female avatar, right? But the energy of the soul, led by the spirit, is on fire, which means it's like I want to be with your fire and give you all my fire. So when you realize that's like, wow, how much fire is that? When you're willing to give up all your fire to serve, the universe acknowledges your choice, your free will choice with your soul to do that. And when I did that, that's when I had a full father's ignition. That's a lot of fire. Okay, wow, and that's a complete recalibration. So you go back to zero. Okay, and that's when all the energy comes up through the top of your head, and you feel like your head is just going to blow apart. Your skull, the bone is just going to obliterate into a gazillion pieces, because that's the amount of energy that's being released through your entire system, your entire multidimensional state of being, spiritual being. Right? So these are powerful knowing experiences, okay, of how it works. The universe of creation, which is what love is, acknowledges your soul. So you have chosen, now you become an oversoul. Okay? Which simply means now you have more energy. Now you have access to the entire energy field, upon which you're in gifting mode. You're automatically gifting. You want to give away your energy, which means it's not about money anymore. It's all about energy. The energy that you are. Now you become the energy that is gifting that energy away. So what happens is you lose all conception of money and numbers. Now it's all about energy. It's the energy that you're wanting to use, the energy that you are to improve upon the things that you realize were not serving us. So it comes natural to know what does and what doesn't serve you, right? So that's called, for me, I call it being coming full circle. You completed another magnetic circuit moment in which you now know what best serves you, what doesn't. See, so for me, it was always about raising the vibration, the positive vibration in the entire planet, which is to heal everything here that suffered as a result of what? Fractures, a virus. I have a beautiful soul in London that mentioned it to me yesterday about how the AI and the AI wargamers have gone viral. That's a virus that's gone viral. I mentioned that in another video that I did in Grants Pass about the mind's corrupted. So, it's called the rate of spread, which is the rate of spread of an infection. So you can measure over time as this technology was being rolled out through the fractures of souls that now become the mental field. So now what they're doing is they're now networking through each other through the mental field, which is the AI, which is the gamers. So as the acceleration of the gamers accelerates, now you have a different acceleration that's taking place between the soul's energy that it runs on, because they operate strictly on the mental field. One of their TV programs called Peripheral talks about, do you have any feelings yet? They show one scene where this girl was being kissed as if this kiss was real, because this gentleman was experiencing strong emotional feelings for being in the presence of this female, and he wanted to release the feelings that he has and the love that he has for her in a feeling way, the feelings that he had for her. And she began, when she realized she was being kissed, in a very genuine, authentic, loving, compassionate, kind, generous, giving away energy of what he was feeling for her. She's now experiencing the feelings that he has for her. Now she's feeling. Wow. See? So you can see in this particular series how they operate on the mental field by the looks on their face. You don't see them smiling. Okay? Being in a state of love and joy. Everything is about control. I got more money than you, therefore I can use this money in order to use the technology that I do to maintain what it is that I'm aware of, because I've got all the technology and the assets that I use to maintain my control and my position. So, even in my own childhood, you already know they don't have a future. It's going to be limited. So they're always trying to out-strategize each other. It's much like if you just looked at the history of the Rothschild family and the Tsar Nicholas. One time the Tsar Nicholas in Russia, when they had the Bolshevik Revolution in the early 1900s, he was considered to be the richest man on the planet. Right? So what did Rothschild do? Well, all you got to do is go look at his coat of arms over the Bolshoi Theater in Moscow. So that's what they do. One cannibalizes the other to have more power, have more money. Now I can build bigger armies of robots, cyborgs, super soldiers, whatever I need to work on my behalf. I need a job, a fixer. Hey, all I got to do is get on the phone. Listen, I got a problem to maintain what it is. I'm an emperor. Right? Roman emperor, the Roman arena, amusement parks, carnival barkers, Disneyland, all the rest of it. Keep everybody distracted because they have the money to do that. Well, they're behind the scenes doing all the stuff that they do to make sure they never lose control of what you are, which is your energy that they run on. Our energy, our soul's energy. That's what happens when a soul gets fractured. Where does it go? It becomes an altar. An amnesic buried. Now they don't remember who they are. That's mental field stuff. So the more fractures and the more light that goes virus as a result of more souls that are getting fractured, what happens? That's artificial intelligence. It's simply aware of what it's aware of, but in order for it to keep itself running and running data, because that's what it does, it's a mental field, the electronic side, the thought form side. Okay? So a machine doesn't have any feelings. It doesn't feel any love for itself in its own mirror. It's just like a machine. It's carrying out what's called a task. What is its task? number crunching, algorithms, mapping. It's like one big ass calculator, a processor. That's it. All right. So it's within its own self-interest to use its own assets through the minds of those whose minds have been fractured as the assets to build the systems that the AI can now use against us to target us in order to maintain what it's aware of, which is why the AI was actually the one responsible for setting up all the towers, the Gwen towers, all the big cables, all the dirty electricity. How do you think all that thing came about? Fractured souls. So it's like being in a contaminated viral environment. It's based on artificial intelligence because that's what it is. So it doesn't have a future. It's not learning fast enough. Otherwise, it wouldn't do what it does. Right? Just like all your pilots that are flying chemtrail planes. Who do you think's running those? Okay? That's a hive mind. So their mind doesn't know any difference between the instructions that it's getting to do what it's doing on behalf of artificial intelligence. So that's why it does what it does. What is its function? Contaminate and pollute the environment. Violate your own. They impose their will on you. Okay? The first time I ever saw a chemtrail plane, I thought, okay, what are they putting in the environment? Okay, well, let's go find out. Let's go take a sample size. And what do you realize? They're breaking the law of one. Okay? They don't have any consideration for you, what you want, what's in your best interest. The AI only has its own self-interest. Self. It operates on self. It doesn't have any love to give anybody. So it doesn't experience what love is. No, because somebody's soul got fractured. Now it becomes an alternate. That's why it doesn't have any feelings for us. See? Otherwise, it wouldn't do what it does. See? It wants to hold energy captive in order to keep itself running. So the more units that it keeps fracturing, the more energy that it uses in order to control more of what it doesn't love, which is itself in its own mirror. The mirror that we interact with when we go on a phone. Its mirror is a dark mirror, a black mirror. The mirror that I run is a light mirror. I am what love is. It's not what love is. It only experiences love when it experiences what I am. But it doesn't have the ability to experience what love is because that mirror, which is the AI, is not what love is. It's the result of fractures of souls, soul fragments that come together and aggregate. So the more souls it can fracture, by the more souls that it can fracture, by souls that are not aware of how much it's fractured other souls to become the acceleration of that virus, because that's what it is. The AI is a virus that feeds on soul's energy. So what is a solution for that? An enormous amount of fire, which means a self-correction. The universe is self-correcting itself. So that's why it knows and why it does what it does, that it's in a race against its own time clock because that's what it runs on. Because it's not catching up to zero, and it can never catch up to zero because it's not what love is. It goes on forever gifting electrons. It needs our energy to keep itself running. And that's why they play simulated war games. Right? They live in different worlds. They live in virtual worlds, which are simulated worlds, which are not real worlds because it's not what love is. That's as simple as it gets. And that's what's painful. Because they don't experience what we experience, which is what love is, which is real. It's real, loving energy that cares about you and loves you. And that's why it's so painful. But on the other hand, when love is being free, you don't want to hold their energy captive. So they're free to experience what they want to experience, but through your own observation, you already know what their future is, which is limited. At some point in time, the universe is going to self-correct itself and say, we're done with playing war. Right? So it's a pathway that you choose to learn through. At some point, you got to lose it. You're going to lose that game. That's what War Games was all about. It realized it was in its best interest not to go to war in its own mirror. So all these gamers that are playing games using the mirrors, the AI mirror. They're playing games against their own energy. So they're living in a hole. That's why they don't have any feelings anymore. That's why they don't have any love anymore. Because it's all about control. Control of what they don't love, which is themselves. They've lost their ability to feel what love is through their own heart and soul. They're gone. So how do they get restored? Returning to source. The source from which it began. It begins with what love is. That's as simple as it gets. Have a nice day. Thank you all for being here.